in that early moment when I was not sure what I was doing and how I was going to do it, the people around me, I didn't need them to try and define it for me. It was just like, let me just figure this out. Let me just see how I can handle this first 30 days, this dry January thing that I'm trying to do.
This is MindBody Matters with Greg Rennie and Rob Reeford.
Welcome to MindBody Matters, where we talk about anything and everything to do with the mind and body because it matters. And here's my producer and co-host. What's your name again?
Rob Reeford.
Rob, how do you pronounce that?
Reeford.
Reeford.
Not reefer. Reeford. Rob Reeford. That's the name they gave me.
And you had to spell it out when you worked in Montreal, right? For a radio station. For some reason, you had to spell it out for the people to understand that this is how you pronounce it.
Well, yeah, especially because of the French population. They would never get, like, my last name is spelled Wreford. Mm-hmm. And so I purposely changed the spelling of my name when I was on the radio in Montreal, and I changed the spelling to Reeford.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
yeah, and it was more for the benefit of the French population, because when they see a WR, I used to always get a Mr. Werford or whatever. But anyway, that's what I did in Montreal. But since I'm now back in Ontario, I've gone back to the original spelling of my name.
Thanks for that short story about your last name. Anyway.
See, as you said, we'll talk about anything and everything.
Yes.
Now today,
yes, sir.
I'm happy to report we're going dry.
We're going dry. That's the name of a book that Sean Robinson wrote, and he's our guest today. And Rob, you remember COVID? Remember how, a lot of people were trying to change their habits back in that period of time?
Well, I think COVID in itself changed a lot of the stuff of how we do stuff. So COVID alone just it changed the way we do things.
Yeah, and I think people took advantage of that change and looked at themselves. During lockdown, all we had really was looking at ourselves and realizing where we are in life and all these deep things. And in January of 2021, as you do each January, there's a dry January. And for those right, you've heard of it before. You've heard about it before.
People who are drinking, sometimes they decide in January we'll go dry and just try it for a month.
Right. And the thing is that with any kind of New Year's resolution or, committing yourself to, 30 days, I'm not going to drink. Most people would continue with their old habit and go back after 30 days. But this guy didn't.
Well, we're going to learn more as we talk to Sean today, but he has an amazing story. And by the way, since he's gone dry, he's dropped a lot of weight.
Yeah, so he applied the same principles in the book. I read the book. It's called Going Dry, My Path to Overcoming Habitual Drinking, but you can apply it to many different things. And the added benefit for him is that he lost a considerable amount of weight using the same principles. Yeah.
This guy at one time was 320 pounds.
Right.
So carrying a lot of extra weight.
Yeah. So Sean reached out to us a while ago and was interested in coming on our show, which is kind of cool because he's been doing a lot of media interviews, came across our show and thought he would be a fit, and most definitely a fit because like our first episode, Rob, if you remember, you got a terrible memory, so maybe you don't remember our first episode. I don't know.
Oh, Mr. Clipperton.
Yes, we talked about addiction in our first episode, and we aren't kind of way talking about addiction, but folks, we're talking about how to change your habits. And if your habit is using alcohol to the point where it's impacting your life, you don't necessarily, and this is coming from an addiction specialist, folks, you don't necessarily have to go to detox. You don't necessarily have to go to treatment or AA. This guy shows if you have enough internal motivation, you can do it on your own. And that's pretty cool. And I think people need to hear that. So technically, Sean Robinson is 3 years sober. He's not a doctor. He's not a specialist. He's actually a construction worker and a first-time author. And I mentioned his book, Going Dry, is what we're going to talk about today. So the author of the best-selling self-help book, Going Dry, My Path to Overcoming Habitual Drinking, Sean Robinson, is our guest on MindBody Matters. So what do you find the difference between being interviewed on a podcast and being interviewed by the media, radio and TV?
I think just the difference is every podcast has its niche. Like there's a specific kind of theme that is around the podcast. When I did the radio stuff, it was kind of more around just a whole general thing. Like it wasn't very specific to one part. So because they just try and cover as much as they can, right, to try and hit a bigger audience. So I think the couple radio specifically were more around the book launch for the local areas. Yeah. So it was pretty intent on getting a quick version of what the story was, where it kind of came from, and then talk about the launch. And they weren't very long.
You are a fellow Canadian, I understand. Yeah. You're from Ontario. Yeah. So I'm from Toronto, and you are from Ottawa?
No, I'm in Belleville.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Every once in a while, I get a chance to interview a fellow Canadian. Yeah. Lately, it's been mainly Americans, but this is really good. I read your book, and I'm looking forward to our conversation today. So thank you very much for coming in and setting aside the time.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate being here, and anywhere I can share this story and show some, male vulnerability and pursuit of, helping my former self is kind of what my niche is. And anytime I can do it, I'm very happy to do it.
Yeah, reading your book, I noticed that you got passed through a lot of what you used to call, or what you called in the book, is toxic masculinity. And I think as guys, we need to get past this macho stuff. And my co-host and me, we've done a lot of chats about just being real and authentic and just being human, rather than falling into those male traps. So look forward to getting to that. But first, like you mentioned, podcasts have a niche, and our niche is the mind and body connection. So based on your experience, and you changed yourself mentally and physically, how do you see that these things are connected? That are, if we change ourselves in our thinking and thoughts, can that affect how our body reacts?
Yeah, I don't think we realize how related everything is. If we don't have the right mindset, we don't have the right attitude about whatever it is we're doing, if it's the thing we love to do the most, or the thing we will never do or think we'll never do, the way we feel, the way we think about it will directly translate in the way we do or don't do it. So
absolutely,
for me, the way that I carried myself for so long was very negative and very down on myself and my abilities, what I could do. And it translated equally into how I carried myself physically.
When we were on the phone, you shared, a lot of key things that as a therapist, I would see is, that formed you later on, but you grew up in an alcoholic family.
There was definitely, and obviously I wouldn't have known it at the time, but there was a lot of things that happened, and a lot of exposure to that environment and drinking environment and socialism that is drinking. And there was a lot of that when I was younger. When I was growing up, my parents, they were 20 years old when they had me. I have two younger brothers, and we were brought up. They had just a young social life. They had the neighborhood that we lived in. Everybody was close, so they took turns going to the different houses in the little circle that was our neighborhood area. And Thursday nights, Friday nights, Saturday nights were the same thing every week. My dad's a mechanic. He had a lot of work in the garage, so oftentimes people would start by coming over to our place in the garage, and because he was finishing up some of his work, the drinks would get flowing and music would get louder, and we had a safe environment, my brothers and I, but it was definitely that exposure to it that made me believe that was just the way it was supposed to be. The way that we were mixing drinks, helping our parents out, grabbing them from the cooler at 8, 9 years old. I knew how to mix a proper Ryan Coke or whatever the way my parents liked it at such a young age. And a lot of these things they felt so innocent because I was helpful. But as I started to create my own habits, my own routines around not only that, but other things, it was like I just was doing what I thought I was supposed to do.
I imagine, because I relate to this so much. I mean, it's like you're talking about my childhood, but we're not here about me. But I relate to growing up in that environment. And I would imagine, we touched on this whole thing about male vulnerability and toxic masculinity. Growing up with your dad as a mechanic, it's a very masculine job. And then you went on to become a firefighter and working in construction. What cues did you get from your father and from your family growing up as to what a man should be?
Well, my dad lost his father when he was very young, so I think a lot of what he was doing was we're all just trying to figure it out. So, but in that environment, he had to figure it out on his own. He probably didn't have a great influence, and that translated to us, me and my brothers, and the way that environment was with, his habits and routines and drinking. It was very macho, very tough, I felt very like we couldn't hug at some point. We couldn't do the sensitive and vulnerable things because we had to be these tough guys. There was like I said, 2 younger brothers, myself, my dad, very masculine, family. And my mom was there too, but she had that boy mom thing where she had to try and be tough herself, I think. But a lot of the drinking nights, the fight, he was a firefighter as well for a long time. So then that's actually how I got into it. But the expectations of a tradesperson, a firefighter, that macho, tough environment translated probably not even on purpose to me and my brothers. It was more because that's just what we saw. Those were the people that were coming over to the house, that were friends with my parents, and it was a safe environment. But there was so much of that I think my brothers and I just took on, to be tough and not talk about things and figure it out on our own, and not show that weakness that is vulnerability.
What changed in you later on? Because you've got kids, right? So as most guys do, we get to a certain age going, wow, I'm really reminding myself of my father. I'm picking up the same traits. What have you changed in your life where you don't have that same perspective about male masculinity and hugging your kids and that? How has that changed for you?
It was a very eye-opening experience. I don't think I realized how toxic it was until I saw the pattern in myself. So I mentioned on the phone, we talked a lot of yelling, impatience, fear that is that father figure. You have to be afraid to make a mistake because dad's going to yell and spank and whatever. So I felt that was the example I had. That must have been the only way that it is. So when I started to get older, and through my own, habits, routines and learnings and whatever, just having this in the back of my mind that's how I'm supposed to behave, I automatically thought that I had to have that, fear to my kids and be the loud, dominant father figure that makes the kids behave by being aggressive, and my patience level and part of the decision to not drink anymore kind of came around my patience and irritability just from how that was making me feel. But the eye-opening experience was just that I didn't recognize that I was becoming something I didn't like when I was younger. So the things that I felt and the things that I didn't like, I was doing that generational trauma thing and paying that forward without even realizing it.
You mentioned your dad as a mechanic. You know, there was that social thing that guys have. They hang around with similar guys, similar work, and drinking's kind of part of the male bonding. Did that transfer in your life as well, seeing that growing up with your dad?
Oh, it definitely did. And it wasn't all just him, because as I grew up and I started to get into the volunteer firefighting, and just to be clear, we never mixed the two, right? Like it was more the social stuff later when we weren't responding. But like,
oh, yeah.
And so that social environment for me and my friends at that time, and then getting in as an electrician and working construction, and just the social expectation of having that beer because we're just going to hang out and be social and it's after work or whatever. And it's like, I recognized that I was finding all of those habits and routines of being in that environment on my own, but having that, witness growing up and seeing, through my dad being mechanic, through those people coming over and a lot of the times he would do work for people and he wouldn't want to take any money for it. Friends, they'd do an oil change or something, and so they'd buy him a bottle of whiskey or a case of beer or something. So he was not taking money from people, but then it was just a normal thing for me to take payment that you don't want to charge somebody for in like booze or,
right.
There was also baked goods, which was kind of a problem. Some of my weight that carried on, because I was doing that in my trade. I was like, I didn't want to take money from something. I'll just buy me a beer or buy like whatever case of beer. So it was like I didn't have to take somebody's money, but then it was like this thing that I grew up seeing as an acceptable thing, as a form of payment or bartering. That became normal. So it just added to what became of my habit and routine with drinking and with that environment.
As you grew up, what type of friends did you surround yourself with? What I really noticed in your book, Going Dry, is that at that point that you made the decision to quit drinking, there was a lot of pressure from your friends. What was it like in your teenage years? Like, what was your social group like?
I had a lot of, I've had a lot of good friends. I still have a lot of those same people. And I think it was just common. I think a lot of that social group was just something we shared as this commonality. Like when I worked in restaurants and worked through high school and college in these part-time and sometimes multiple part-time jobs, it was like, that was just the thing to do after. It was like, and I talk quite a bit in the book about it, but that rite of passage of you get from this point and there's this like gray area of you're not quite of age yet. Ontario is 19, whatever it is where you're from, there's that gray area of, it might be okay by your parents or your guardians, and then you're not illegal yet, so you kind of do it at home and in backyard parties or whatever it may be. But then you become of age, and through that process of, you're doing this thing not legally, and then you're doing it socially, and then you're of age. So it's like that rite of passage that now I've got to be able to buy it for myself and whoever and do these things. It was just that way with my groups. It was, we finished this work at 11 o'clock or midnight or whatever. And then it was like, well, we're going to go have drinks because that's what people do when they're done work at that time of day, or when we're off, we're going to go to have a house party or something. It was kind of just through that routine and habit of the people around me and the city that I'm in. And I think that's a common thing across the board. It's just what we did.
In 2020, you made a major change in your life and you changed your habits. That's the big thing I'm getting out of your book. Leading up to 2020, can you tell us a bit about what your habits were like and how they were affecting you?
Yep. I was pretty sure that I was who I was supposed to be at about the 36 years old when this started. My habits, my routines, the beliefs I had about myself, who I was supposed to become, where I was supposed to, that was all, as far as I knew, this is just who I am. That was my biggest excuse. This is just who I am. And I was carrying myself that way. And any of the overeating, any of the, the snacking, the drinking, the attitudes, the way that I did certain things, if I was camping, if I was working, if I was whatever, as far as I was concerned, that was just set. And it wasn't something I thought of that I could just change that I could just, through any series of events, make that a priority and change. Because if you ask me, it was just the way it's supposed to be, where we become this version and then we just work on developing that as we go. But to make an absolute shift, it wasn't there. So the pandemic obviously did its thing to a lot of people. And for me, even with the fire department, like they stopped training for a while. So we weren't even going to training. Calls were down because people weren't going out, and anything that was, we were kind of high. We were just more careful because we wanted to make sure if it was a COVID situation that we were going into it okay. So call volumes were down. I still worked through everything, but like evenings, I wasn't going out. So alcohol, liquor stores, beer stores were open. I drank more. We would do social Zoom parties with my friends. It was a fun thing, and everybody would just drink in their living rooms
on Zoom
and do their thing. So my already bad habits and routines with it just got worse with that first year of the pandemic. And coming to the end of 2020 at 320 pounds, feeling just absolutely miserable, coming from that place of that toxic and masculine environment that felt I had to fix it myself, that I couldn't ask for help, I couldn't show weakness, I couldn't be vulnerable. All of this built up mental pressure that I had on myself. It was like I just didn't know what to do. So at the end of 2020, being in that place where I was just so confused and full of thought and not sure what my next move was, I just knew my relationship with drinking and mixing drinks with other mixed drinks and the whole environment needed a change. So leading up to that point, about the Christmas time-ish or a little earlier, I started just venting to myself in a journal. I wasn't calling it a journal, but it was just this book I had that I was writing these thoughts down. I was putting these things out because I just needed an outlet that I wasn't going to get judged for. My wife's been great through everything, but I think there was just a point where she didn't know how to take what I was giving, what I was trying to outlet to her. And that journal gave me a place that I could do it and not feel like I had to explain it further than I wanted to. So writing these thoughts down and really beating myself up in this journal, putting this stuff out there, it would become so much bigger for me later, but it gave me enough of a brainstorm that I could change the way I started the next year. This gave January, it was 2021. I could make a change that would start the year. I would do the resolution thing that I never really thought worked for me, but it was an excuse that was good to get started. And it was everything I could do to put it off as long as I could. January 1st, 2021 was this Saturday. Then it gave us the holiday in lieu on the Monday. So basically it was the 3rd or 4th. My date is the 4th that I started to not drink, because that was as far as I could possibly put it off. It was a Tuesday, and I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no idea how I was going to get started. I couldn't reach out for help. No one was going to find out I was keeping a journal or diary or whatever my buddies would have called it. And it was just a matter of trying one small thing. I learned much more about this later, but one small thing to just start the year off better than the way I finished it. And taking that dry January, that 30 days of not drinking as my resolution was obviously in hindsight the best thing I could have done, but it was just something I could do to make a difference.
With my background working in addiction, there's a few questions come to mind, but do you feel that you were seeing yourself going into what would be diagnosed as alcoholism, substance use disorder?
I definitely do. I think that when I went into it, it wasn't from that place. I didn't think that there was those definitions or those I just felt I was coming from a different place, a lifestyle choice. But I would learn as I go through the process, and I would learn that there was a lot of instances that there were definitely could have been better. The way that my attitude was, my impatience level, the yelling, the way that I was then translating things that I went through when I was younger, and just becoming that version. I think that was definitely coming from a place of alcoholism and substance abuse, and I would learn and accept that much later. But in that moment, it didn't feel like where I was coming from, and it was almost upsetting that people around me were trying to define it for me. That they were like, "Well, you're an alcoholic." I'm like, "Well, I don't think so. Like, why are we putting a definition on it? Why does it have to be something in order to make a change?"
No, it's an excellent point. Yeah.
So it was, and I, as I've grown, I've come to realize a lot more about how that might have looked for me or how I felt about it. But in that early moment when I was not sure what I was doing and how I was going to do it, just the people around me, I didn't need them to try and define it for me. It was just like, let me just figure this out. Let me just see how I can handle this first 30 days, this dry January thing that I'm trying to do.
Let's go to your book. In the rules that you have, strong, very, very strong suggestions, but I was quite impressed that it makes a lot of sense. So your book is Going Dry, My Path to Overcoming Habitual Drinking. What's rule number one?
Rule number one was no pretending. I just didn't want to go from, being this way to making myself or people around me think that I was still the same person. I didn't know enough yet at that time about changing habits and things I would learn. But in that moment, I just didn't want to fake anything about it. I didn't want to keep the same routine. I wanted a line in the sand or a wall between who I was and who I was trying to be.
Was it early on that you had the pushback from your friends, especially the one friend that was getting married? He had a strong reaction to your drinking and was kind of pissed off, thinking, well, like, aren't you going to honor my marriage? It almost seemed like that, honor my marriage by drinking. And he said, "You better be fucking drinking at my wedding." And that was repeated quite a lot during that time. Tell us a bit about how you processed that. That seemed to kind of really get under your skin.
Yeah, that was something that hung over me throughout. And the book is based on that year that is the decision I made to change, and then a reflection at the year mark. But that hung over. The wedding was in October, at the end of September. So as I made the decision to do 30 days, and it developed to 60 days, 100 days, and then the decision to go a full year, COVID was still there. It was still not allowing people to do the weddings with amounts of people. And their wedding was supposed to be the year before. So it got postponed from a place where I was this old self to when I was making these decisions. And I didn't know, because I was going into it so confused and so unsure. I didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't know these things in every moment. So when he said, like, what's your thing? I was like, I don't know. I'm just doing it for now. Well, you better fucking drink at my wedding. It's like, I don't know, maybe. I don't know where this is going. And then when I committed to doing that for the full year, and I'm still not drinking, but for the book purpose, it was like, how can I be this person for him, and how can I show up for him in this way and celebrate the wedding? And because in my old mindset, the way I was brought up, it was like I had to be the one to buy my round or more every time. I wanted to do the celebratory shots or the things that I was used to doing to celebrate a person's function or birthday or wedding or whatever. But now I'm not that person anymore. So while I'm trying to figure it out and while I'm trying to decide what that is for me, how do I translate that to someone else? How do I let him know that I still want to be there for him? I still want to celebrate their wedding. I still want that to be important for them, but this is important for me too. And it took a lot of I was very anxious about the whole thing. Like, how do I show up for him the same way? And even up till the day of the wedding, it was like, oh, you're drinking those, whatever. And he's just, at that point, I had allowed myself to use the 0% and the different things.
Oh, okay. The near beer. Yeah.
The near beer. Like
or 0%. Yeah.
Yeah. It was in the beginning, I wasn't pretending, but by like August, September, I allowed myself to try a few, just as social, and I have no issue with them. It wasn't maintaining a habit for me at that time. It was just something that I tried to see how it fit, and it didn't make me want to go back to where I was before. So when I had at his wedding in September, October, a couple of these, just because it was a backyard thing and they had their own licensing and all that done, but I brought a few of my own just because the way he had it was there was shots of everything at every table. That was their like party favor.
Wow.
Was everybody could do these shots all night, and we're still friends, and we worked together too. So it was almost like I was getting pressure from both our work environment and the firefighting environment, because we were both involved with the same two sectors. So it was something that I had to gain confidence in myself and my own mission, if you will, in order to be able to say that this is just the person I am trying to be now. I'm not trying to do that anymore. We can still have a good time, and I still want to be there for you, but it's just not going to be in the way that you're used to me showing up.
Why was it such a big thing for him? Because I know that you're saying you're at a point where you weren't quite sure if you're going to be drinking during the wedding. But like reading this, and I'm sure other readers would see the same thing, why don't you just tell him to piss off?
Well, we had friends, and in that moment, I didn't know that my decision to change was going to affect people around me so much. Like, he wasn't the only person that was confused with what it was I was doing. Like, this isn't the first time I had tried some lifestyle changes or betterment, and one thing I had to learn was that not everybody around us is ready for us to change. We're so used to people around us and what to expect from them in a given moment, good or bad, that when people start to do something different, it's like a big red flag goes up, and we're not sure how to deal with it. We're not sure how to handle that. And I think that was what was happening with people around me. It was like, well, what do you mean you're not going to drink anymore? What do you mean you're not going to do this? This is the way you've always been. And I think as much as it was for me to get comfortable with what it was I was trying to do, the people around me had to learn, and I'm giving them credit a little bit for what it is, because I think this is important. Like, everyone has to learn what it is I'm doing too, right? Not everybody was like, we're especially with around the drinking part, like the groups and circles and family, like that was just what we did. So then all of a sudden someone's not doing that. Okay, well, I have water. Like, what can I get you? What do you want? And then just the awkwardness of some people around me were drinking, and it was like, sorry. And I'm like, I don't need you to apologize. I don't need you to feel any different because I'm not doing it. Yeah. And that was a part of the other rules that I kind of came up with early on, was just that I didn't need anybody around me to do different because that's what I was doing. So, I can get into the second one. Rule number 2 was fit in. I didn't want to be that awkward, judgy person flipping around a bottle of water in the corner, waiting for the first moment to go home from wherever it was I was sitting. It was like, I didn't need people around me to feel like I was there for any other reason than I wanted to still be there. I still wanted to be involved.
Looking back, do you think part of their pushback and part of their confusion is that if you're getting sober, let's use that phrase, but you're quitting drinking, that kind of pushes up against some concerns I have about myself, right? Because these guys were heavy drinkers. So do you think part of the pushback was, does that mean I have to look at my behavior?
I definitely think that's a big part of it. I think that we naturally do that when somebody's starting to change or somebody's starting to do something better, even if they don't mean it. And I never meant any of it in a judgmental way. And writing the book was never to expose anything, because and I didn't name anybody in this book. Like, there's the only name in there that I used, and I'd hired a publisher it was self-published, but I hired someone to help me with my editing and design and all that. and they suggested I use my wife's name, which my wife was okay with, but it wasn't about anybody else. So it wasn't about, my friend in the wedding and his wife. It wasn't about my parents. It wasn't about anybody else in the book, because this was my take of it. This was what I was feeling, and to not come from that judgmental place. I think people did that automatically, in that environment when I'm not drinking. They definitely probably translated that into, oh, well, he's doing it, so I feel bad that I'm drinking this much and eating this much because that's what I'm used to doing, because, well, he's just going to judge me for it. And I never came from that, but I think we just do that automatically.
How was your wife during all of this? You said that you really kind of focused on the journal and working through these changes in your life, but what was your wife saying about these changes? And was she confused? Was she supportive?
She's been great through the whole thing, very supportive. In the beginning, she didn't know the extent. Obviously, none of us would have known, but she definitely didn't know the extent of how serious I was about it. There was a lot of times at a lot of functions where I would, and then through my habits, I would bring way more than I needed to. It was part of just having enough that I could offer it out. If I was saying buy my round in the form of, here, hey, have a beer, I have some right here, or just trying to be on my mission to get through everything that I brought. And there was times she wanted to leave a function much earlier than I did, and I'd do what I could to sneak extra drinks and no, well, I still have half a drink left. And meanwhile, it was 2 drinks ago that she wanted to leave. And so there was a lot of times that were quite difficult for us. And I would find out later that she had some thoughts that she didn't know how to bring up with me, my patience levels and my attitude. And there was some things, and it was not coming from an unsafe place, but it was just not sure how to talk about it. So as I started to grow and I started to get out of this old mindset, and I started to be more accepting of things, like it was so massive for our relationship. And then with my kids, that like, it was like, she didn't have to have that fight with me, or we didn't have to have that conversation. I was just becoming this person on my own. And then as I learned, like I said, there was just some moments she wanted to talk about. As I learned at these moments, like, it was really an eye opener at that time to just keep going, or to just acknowledge that, okay, I wasn't proud of this person. I there was things I was doing, and I could really see how, toxic they were to my own environment, but really appreciate with clarity that it was as bad as it was, and that I need to not go back there.
How about your kids? I'm not sure how old they were at the time, but how were they responding to these changes? Did they have questions, or were they at an age where they were able to process it?
There was a lot. So I mentioned I grew up with her 2 brothers, very masculine environment. And I kind of talked a long time that I think things would have been much different if one of my brothers was a girl. If I had a sister growing up, I think the softness would have translated, that we wouldn't have grown up in such an environment as masculine and as it was at times, because it's what it was. If there was a girl there, I think it would have been different. So
interesting.
To answer your question, when I was going through most of this, I had 2 boys. They're 8 and 10 now, so they were about 5 and 7 when I started this. And at the end of 2020, when I was going through my journaling, going through like the decision to change, about October or September 26th, my daughter was born. So my youngest is a daughter, and this was in the beginning of my decision to change. But
wow,
I started, and she was an infant. So the things I see now, like if I get excited, like she just crumbles, right? Like she gets upset, and even if it's not excitement, just any kind of loud noise. And I picture that to back up my point of what my environment would have been like with a girl. And it definitely was exactly the way I thought it would have been. And it was just one more reason for me to continue to change. I was negative, and I was hard on my boys because it was all I knew. I thought, like, even at 5 and 7 years old, which is crazy, like they had to toughen up and they had to figure it out and problem solve. And And what do you mean you're upset? And like just that like dominant masculine father figure that I thought I had to be was just not productive. And as I started to change and to appreciate reading books and listening to podcasts and audiobooks and just doing my own research and I'll say my own therapy in the form of that content that we can elaborate on. But it was like allowing that content into my life and learning a few techniques that I could translate. It allowed me to communicate to my kids in a way and show them through my actions a way that I wasn't this person anymore. I wasn't being insensitive, and like I could show them. And then an example is like my middle child is very anxious and we just negative and upset on himself, and just part of maybe what our old environment was just, created a lot of questions with him. And so I read John Gordon's Energy Bus. And
Energy Bus is the name?
Energy Bus. And there's an adult version and a kid's version. So the adult version, the character in this book, he's very upset, and basically the context is that you need the golf shot. They call it the greatest golf shot. And it's like, no matter how your round is, how you do, there's that one shot that keeps you coming back. And in the kids version, which we read each other all the time now, they call it the favorite thing or the positive thing. So what we do every day now, and we've done it for a couple of years, is at the dinner table, we pick our favorite thing of the day. And in the beginning, when we did this, it was difficult. We couldn't decide. Like we'd have terrible days, and it's like, no, guys, like you need to just find that one thing, just something that made you smile, something that made you laugh. Your favorite color showed up on something, and just anything. And as difficult as it was, we did this every single day, and each of us took a turn. And it's developed to a point now where if we have 30 people over for a barbecue, my anxious middle child, he will lead this with every single person and expect every person around comes up with their favorite thing. And my daughter, who's now 3, she has perfect context. She speaks that, we picked her up from daycare. She'll say, "Oh, mommy picked me up from daycare." And then we're having dinner together, and she's playing this game properly too. And we just take our turns and choose what our favorite thing is. And I would have never found that if I didn't open up to this world of maybe I wasn't doing it correctly, or maybe I was the problem. And it has been such a great thing for not only me, but for my kids too, to just now grow up in this environment where we acknowledge these things, or that they don't feel like they have to be on edge and eggshells with me all the time, that I'm there to support them, and I'm there to work with them and show them a bit better way to do it.
We were talking about your wife before. So like when you went through this transformation, when you started to change and you had your daughter, and as your daughter grew up, she's 3 now, you said, right?
Yeah.
How did your wife see the change? Like what did your wife see in you that was changed? Because what you're describing is you improved yourself, but you improved yourself as a father. Did you improve yourself as well as a husband?
I did, for sure too, because there was a lot of that toxic masculine attitude that I was translating to her too. Like there was some communication, as spouses do, that like I just wasn't opening to her perspective or how she saw it. And a lot of this content that I've been able to absorb, just to back up a bit, like I work 45 minutes away from my home, and there was a lot of the same music every day all the time, and I just thought there was a better use of my time. So how this translates to your question and my wife is, I was coming home with this like new perspective, this new podcast, this book that I'd finish, and I'd want to talk about it. I'd be like, "Oh, you have to listen to this, you have to read this, you have to whatever." And like not everybody makes that kind of time. I don't want to say that they don't have it, because I think we all have it. She was more busy with the kids. I work in construction. I was at work for 7:00 a.m. in Kingston, which is about an hour away. And then I was the same drive home, and she would do the mornings with the kids and the evenings with the kids. And for me to absorb all this content, even though she didn't have the time to do it, our communications changed. I was more interested in trying to help her emotionally with what was going on in her day, or with supporting the kids and taking parts of that off of her plate. And so backing up with growing up with the fire department, and my dad was gone. Like, we couldn't do certain things because he had to be available for calls. And as respectful as that I am to that, we definitely missed out on quite a bit because it just had to be ready to go. So in my situation where I am now, I don't want to make my wife stay home to be so that I can go to these calls and on a volunteer department, they keep enough people on that there's enough manpower. But I don't make her stay home. I don't hold that environment at home that I'm ready, just because I know, especially now with mental health and the way that we're being more supportive and there's more awareness.
Yeah.
I know it's important to give her that support, and we definitely work a lot better because I'm more aware of it. She's more aware of it. There's books, there's content, there's information that I've been able to translate. And even though she doesn't have the kind of time I do to listen to it, she's listening to the audiobooks now and some of the podcasts, and just seeing where my growth has gone is given her a lot of her own drive to do different things. And like the favorite thing example, like, she's a manager with her work, and she's actually used this with her staff in meetings to just energize the group. Like, she got through the end of this meeting, and she could tell the rest of the group was kind of drag, and she's like, all right, I want everybody to tell me your favorite thing. What was your favorite thing today? And she had a bunch of people come up to her after and just tell her that made such a huge difference, and how much they appreciated it.
I'd like to get to rule number 2 in your book. But before that, I want to go back a bit. You mentioned that what really helped you, and I think you described it as therapy. You start realizing that there's podcasts that spoke to you, books that spoke to you, and audiobooks. How did that become therapy for you?
Well, I came from that space that I couldn't ask for help. And this was all how I felt. Obviously not true, but I felt I couldn't ask for help. I felt I couldn't show that weakness. I couldn't do those things. The decision to listen to something different than the music was like, I didn't even know where to start. I didn't even know where to start because I couldn't ask anybody about it. I didn't want to be like, what's the best wellness podcast, or who do you like? What do you listen to? What's out there? So when I started, it was like, and I ended up finding athletes and actors, actresses, just people that I felt like I knew by just Googling and researching it. And they were on different podcasts about their different vulnerabilities, their different addictions, their different, with, I don't want to say weaknesses, but just the different things that they were dealing with. And it was like hearing Kobe Bryant or hearing Jim Carrey or hearing whoever talk about the things that they were going through that seemed like normal things. It was like, wow, like I could relate to this. And then just by opening up to those people, it's like, well, they make a really good point. What about Andrew Huberman, or what about all of these other experts? And I really got into Tony Robbins right off because of the way that he's such a great influence, and just hearing some things like, I used to say I've tried everything, but then like hearing Tony Robbins talk about how, like, well, what have you tried? Name 3 things, name 5 things, name 1 thing, and it's like realizing that, okay, I haven't tried anything. And it really, hearing some of these things, hearing Tony's episodes, and then getting into School of Greatness and finding all of these things, and everybody that's in this realm, it seems, has their own version of their books or their own version of their story. And then I'm listening to these audiobooks, or I'm listening to more interviews about this stuff. And because I have all this time, and because I'm making all this time with cutting the grass and going for walks and the time at home, I'm absorbing so much of this information. I'm like in this wormhole of development that I would have never been in, because the circles I was in, the people I was around, we weren't doing this. Nobody around me was talking about podcasts. Nobody around me was talking about reading anything, let alone reading development books and self-help books and all of these things that seem so vulnerable and not from where I used to be, I was finding the most growth in learning. We don't know anything when we're born. So what makes us think that that person we are at 36 years old, where I was, knows enough to carry himself for the rest of his life? I was opening up this can that was such a great thing for me, because I was now learning things that were therapy. They became therapy because it was a place that I could go that wasn't judgmental. It wasn't someone that was going to make me feel a certain way. And it was safe because I didn't have to talk to anybody about it or feel that I was vulnerable, feel that I was weak. And I would learn later that, you know, these things that are available are there for a reason. Part of why I want to speak about it and why I'm sharing all this is it was a lot more difficult for me to do it than it needed to be. If I was to just accept that it's normal to be vulnerable, it's normal to have moments, and those resources are there for a reason.
Let's go to rule number 2. Explain that for the audience and what that meant to you.
So rule number 2 was just that I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be a part of the group. And a lot of the times, the groups that I was in when I was drinking, when I was the most involved, there would always seemed to be somebody there that wasn't playing the game, we'll call it. They were, you know, in the corner. Maybe they were talking to another person that wasn't playing. They were there. Maybe it was spouses or whoever. It was like there was just people that were there that didn't seem like they wanted to be there. And as a drinker, as a contributor, you're kind of aware of those people. You kind of know, you know, that because maybe you're not over in that corner talking to them. Maybe you're not interested in talking to them because you're having the games or the whatever. So I was just aware of that. So it was important to me when I started that I wasn't going to go to functions or go to places and sit off in the corner and twist my bottle of water around in my fingers or hands as I just waited for that moment to leave. So it was kind of important to me that I did what I could to try and fit in and be engaged in whatever environment I was in.
So I have your book in front of me. So rule 3, stay the course. And I'll read just the first part here that you wrote. Those next 30 days sober was going to happen, and I was committed to it. I never intended to rush back into it at the end of 30 days. I took it one day, one visit, and one event at a time. Tell us more about that.
So I had tried New Year's resolutions before, and they didn't work. They were just, I think, without any concept of how I was going to get through it in the past. It was just destined to fail before it started. But this time, because of what led me to that point, I needed it. I needed to give myself a better chance. So without even knowing that consistency is a key to real development and habit change, I just knew for some reason I needed to do every day in January. I needed to do the 30 days. And as I would go through, like, there was people around me that were doing their own version of try whatever or January New Year's resolutions, and they would fall off like within a week or 2 weeks. That's the way I used to be. It's probably pretty common.
Any of my New Year's resolutions was gone probably by mid-January.
Yeah, exactly. And so there was like this group of people around me that were starting to fall off from their commitments. And I was already thinking I needed to do this for the full month. And it was like, I couldn't believe that it was so easy for people to just stop doing or start doing contrary to whatever it was they were trying to achieve. And I was like, no, like I need this to happen. Like, I need to find out how I feel at the end of this 30 days, the end of this month. And as people around me were going back to whatever routines and habits they had, I just kept going. And then I couldn't believe the comments. People around me were like, what do you mean? Like, you're still doing this? You're still, like, you made it. Like, it's middle of the month. Like,
my God, you're serious about this.
You can have a drink now. It's not a big deal. Like, well, no, it is a big deal. And And as I was just trying to stay that course or to be consistent, it was like, I'll figure this out after 30 days. Give me till the end of the month. And it wasn't that I was telling people I was going to be done by the end of the month. It was just, this is what I'm doing right now. I've committed to January, and we'll see.
You were committed because I believe someone, maybe a family member, came to you and said, "Oh, so you're not drinking, right?" And you said, "Yeah, I'm not drinking," or whatever comment you had. And the guy said, "Okay, well, there's beer here. I'll get you a beer."
Yeah.
What the heck was that?
Yeah, there was a few times that just people didn't understand how serious I was about it, and honestly, I don't think people knew, because with a spotlighting effect, we always think we're the center of everyone's attention, but I don't think everybody around me knew how I was feeling about it, or what it was doing to me mentally, or what my reservations were. So when I had made the decision to change, as most of us I think do, when something gets to a point where we need something different, nobody feels the emotion like we do. Nobody understands the pain, if there's pain, or the issues like we do. So when people around me were like, "Oh, there's beer here," they didn't know how that comment, it was affecting me, or what I was even working on. So even as like my own brother, and this is probably in line with where you're headed, but my own brother was like, "You can't have a beer? Why? You haven't got your coin yet?" It's like, well, this isn't about coins. This isn't about programs. This isn't about anything.
It's not about the AA program, though.
No, it's not about. That's such an insensitive comment, and he would learn how much later. But like that was like daggers to me, because like it was not fair for him to say that, but it was coming from that place, like we talked about earlier, how he wasn't ready for that, whatever version it was I was doing. He wasn't ready for the change that I was, because like we said, everybody that's not going through, some wellness, or is upset about their own actions, they just see it as an attack on what they are doing, their routines. And there was other times where at another function, a friend was like, "Your wife's not here." Like, "What do you mean you can't do drinks with us? This is a guy's trip. We were going to Niagara Falls. Your wife's not here. You can have a drink with us." And it was like, well, in the background, yes, I'm doing this for my family and what that relationship is, but she didn't make that decision for me. I'm not doing this for my wife and my kids directly. This is something I'm doing for me, and it's directly affecting them. It's directly positive for them. So to go away on a guy's trip, it wasn't about hiding it, because I was going to hide that from myself. So it didn't matter how the rest of this was going to go. I would know that I didn't achieve what I was working on. I would know that I had that drink or that whatever on that weekend, and it would have been, worse for what I was trying to achieve. So it was definitely a mix of those struggles from my circles.
Did the relationships change? I know we're jumping ahead here. I want to go to rule number 4, but jumping ahead, did you maintain those relationships? Did they change, or did you kind of like start to distance yourself from those guys?
I think part of the thing I was worried about in the beginning was that, because as I started to learn about development, I started to learn about, the top people you spend your time with are what you become. I was worried about losing friendships. I was worried about how that was going to translate, and it isn't as instant for the most part, as at least in my case, it wasn't as instant as I thought it was going to be. Naturally, we grow closer and we grow further from people as we get older. Your people from high school aren't probably in your life very much, or if they are, it's maybe in and out. So it's like, I did grow further apart from certain people, but I grew closer together with other people. Do I not have a relationship with people from the past? No, it's just different now. I'm not looking to go out and, get drunk and whatever every weekend. It's just what it is, but that doesn't mean I can't go once in a while and it's just a different relationship now than it was. So, I definitely grew a bit further apart from people. I definitely don't see people, that I used to see, but it didn't come from a complete disconnect. It was something that just kind of, as I grew, we just grew apart, and that was okay.
I can see the difference in the transition in the book, because you talked a lot about what you saw as having fun, and also, your friends, the camping and all these activities that were tied in with alcohol. Rule number 4 in your book is have fun, being silly, making memories, and being in the moment. How did you get to the point where you realized that we need to have fun this way?
Well, this rule came later in the book and later in the journey than the other 3. The other 3 were very much kind of early on, and then it got to a point where I was like, I thought I had to have alcohol. I thought I had to have a couple of drinks. It was just the way that I was led to believe that in order to have fun at golf, I just had to have a couple of drinks, or in order to have fun camping, I had to get those couple of drinks in just to get the ball rolling. And as I started to grow, it was like I didn't want to avoid certain functions. I didn't want to not go out. I didn't want to just become a hermit and stay in my house and not go out. So to have fun was just basically, for me, it was like trying to learn how to ride a bike again, because all of the things I was so used to doing involved holding a drink while I threw the horseshoe, or holding that drink or having that around while I was building a campfire or camping or whatever it may be. It was like that was such a staple for social and fun functions that I made the extra effort to make sure that I was still going to go out. I was still going to enjoy these functions, but not do so with that drink. And it was important to me, because I could have gone the entire year or whatever it was, but then not really had that test, not had that moment that I was so used to doing before. And then I think, like any moment, I would have had to learn that later anyways. I would have learned how I would have been at a wedding, or how I would have been at a concert or camping, or any of the things I was so used to doing before with that cooler or drinks nearby. It was like, it just became so important to me to go out, be involved, build my confidence, because it was very much a lack of confidence that was a lot of my doubt in how I was going to handle this. It was building that confidence by being out and showing myself and other people that it was just important to me to still be there.
I can see that you were stressed about the wedding, because you actually dedicate a whole chapter to this guy's wedding. What was it like? Tell us what happened at that wedding, and did his attitude change, and like, how did you respond to him at the wedding?
There was a lot through the year in the wedding, and then even up until New Year's. It was New Year's Eve. I had committed to the entire year. We had a function at his house, because we have the same circle of friends. It was a function there, and it was fine. I was okay to go, and I did not plan on going back January 1st of 2022. It just wasn't in my plan at that time to just be like, okay, well, I've done this for a year now, here I go. But even at that New Year's Eve party, it was like they were handing around shots of stuff, and just a small dig. It was, oh wait, it's not New Year's yet. It's not New Year's, so you can't. So it was like he was going to pass it to me, realized it was me, and then gave it to somebody else.
These guys were cruel. I mean,
yeah.
I'm surprised that you saw them as friends. Like, you would think that even getting past the toxic masculinity, that these guys would say, you know what, man, I don't understand it, but I respect you. You didn't get very much of that.
I got that from some people. I definitely did. Like, there was some support, and honestly, there was people that came to me later that were watching, and I didn't know they were watching, but I was putting more of this out. People knew that I was doing it now. And after the book came out, it was like people were blown away that I was able to share that. But then people were like, you know what? I've made changes because you made changes, or like, you need to keep this up because you don't know who's watching. And it was like, even though there were those people that gave me that doubt and that disconnect throughout, having people say, this is amazing what you're doing. I can't believe it's been this long. And I've definitely started making my own changes because of this. It was like, even though I had the people that weren't prepared for the version I was and were dealing with their own things, it was like, the people that were coming later, and this friend that with the wedding, I actually had a great conversation at that same New Year's party with his wife, who was very, like, they've been great in the background since then. But like at that moment, it was like she was working on her own version of her own, and she had been following along, and like we had an amazing conversation about how like she wasn't drinking and different things that she was doing for her own life. And then like my wife and I have been at different functions with them since, and it's been a great relationship, and it has come back around. But when I was going through that change, and I was doing these things for myself, and it was true with other people. They don't understand yet. It wasn't for them in that moment to understand what I was going through, because they weren't ready for that.
A lot of people go through changing their habits, right? A lot of people go through, they stop smoking, right? And they continued on, and but they didn't write a book. So, and you didn't have any books prior to this. Why did you want to write a book?
So this was never intended to be. I didn't go into this thinking I'm going to do this experiment, see how I feel, write about it, sell it. It was never, never on my mind. So when I was journaling and I was beating myself up at the end of 2020, and then I maintained that journal as I started this, and I wrote my commitment to myself. I came up with these rules, and then the fourth rule, and just kind of worked through it. This was never for anybody else. This was for me to understand what I was doing and how I was feeling. So then as I made my way through this year, and I came up with the different things that worked for me, and I vented about the things that I didn't like and that were difficult, I got to about that wedding and just past, there was a guy's trip with a couple of coworkers that I went on, and a friend had asked me, genuinely, he said, how is this going? Like, how is it going? And I said, shit, I could write a book. And it was never in the concept that I was going to do that. It was just to kind of exaggerate, but fairly exaggerate exactly how much had been going on since January, and before that to that September, October point. So when I said, shit, I could write a book, it was just like, holy, I have been writing this book. I don't even know how I would share this, but like, I could use this. I could have used this when I started, because when I started, I wasn't sure how I was going to do it. And I didn't know podcasts and these things. As I started to learn and grow in that environment, I'm like, well, what kind of stuff's out there from where I came from? Construction and masculine and the recipe that was where I was coming from, or at least a portion of it that I could have related to. And I couldn't find it. A lot of the stuff that I was finding was, I've heard the expression from the peak, right? It wasn't from the valley. It was from the peak and the reflection of that after point. And that's all great. But I was like, well, this is a version from me, from my journey. And it's detailed throughout the process of being in that rock bottom, if you will, point in my life, and that point where I needed a change, to working through it and getting to, a year sober, and then the challenge I've put towards the end for the reader to do something of their growth that they want to work on. It was like, I could have used this, so I feel like I could give back to who I used to be. And when I started to ask some questions, like my wife's aunt, she wrote a couple books and self-published, and I just said, like, I'm thinking that I want to do this, but like, I have no idea. And so I started reaching out to different publishers to just kind of see if there was, any interest in it. And because of the space I'm coming from, not very, popular social at the time, and different things, like, I just decided I was going to self-publish, and I found this contact through my wife's aunt, and really was really great to help me with design. And because no, I'm not an author. I don't come from this space. So to be able to take this journal and this memoir to a point where I could make it that the reader would understand where I'm coming from, and that the reader would take, you know, the version that I had where I knew everything I was feeling, but to put that in a point where I could share it. It was all with the intention of giving back to where that person I was in the beginning that needed that raw, relatable version that it was.
What jumped out at me about your book that's different from other books, you know, the motivational speaker kind of books, you know, like, you know, I changed my life and now I have $2 million in my bank account. You can too. This wasn't your angle with
No.
your book. I found it very personal. I felt it very compassionate that you wanted to share this, especially with guys getting past all this stuff that takes time. But showing that if you want to change, no matter what change that is, whatever habit that is that you can do it. And these are my processes. And if it helps, great. I love that angle. You know, you didn't like push it on the reader.
Yeah, it was never my intention to come from any sort of peak or perch that I needed to just give this out, that, you know, you can do this too, and have all this. I want people to know they can go through this, but I wanted it. And in the end, when I decided, like, you know, could I put this out, and could I be vulnerable, and could I expose certain feelings that I had, and if for anybody else, it was like, you know, yes, I could have used this, but it was real. It was, as I went through it, the documentation, and it was like, to go from that mindset from one point to another, like you get that transition as you go through it. And as I mentioned earlier, I wasn't a reader. I wasn't open to that content. So by not making it 500 pages and really making it, you know, a lot bigger and more extravagant than it is, it's 120 pages. It's easy read. It's something I would have read before when I wasn't a reader, if I felt that I could have benefited from it. So to put it for that person that I was, it was how I was so comfortable with being vulnerable, and because I'm not putting it out there to judge anyone else. I'm putting it out there for where I was. I'm putting it out there for where I was in the first pages of this, when I needed it the most.
I think a lot of people are going to relate to it. Winding down, the listeners that we have listening today, what's your advice to them if they want to change a habit?
I think the biggest thing that I would say is don't think about how big this habit is. If I was to think about going completely sober and then that being my new life in the beginning, it would have never been something I would have achieved. I've also since lost 100 pounds, so I've worked on quite a bit in the background.
You were 320 when all this started, right?
I was 320 pounds. I'm 218 now.
218, good for you.
I actually weighed at 215, so there was a lot of things that I've been able to translate. And as you mentioned, like the techniques and the challenge for the reader, it doesn't have to be about drinking. It doesn't have to be about weight loss. It can be anything. And my advice about changing that habit is to just start small. Don't think about a year or whatever. Think about, you know, just that first day. And I know the programs all speak to one day at a time. You know, just do that one day. But think about that one day as, I'm hopeful that I can do it for this week, or I want to commit to that month. And as you do the month, do the 2 months, or just use whatever habit you're doing and break it small. The other thing that I've learned about habits is, you know, we're not running marathons here. We're just putting our shoes on. We're just taking those few steps. So if your habit is to be more physical, don't think about an hour at the gym. Just pick the medicine ball up.
You're definitely not the stereotypical motivational speaker that I was describing, but I got to say, Sean, is that reading this book and talking to you today is very, very motivating. So you're able to accomplish that without pontificating and just talking about the peaks in life, right? The last thing we like to do in the podcast is, based on the guest's favorite quote, what that quote means to them. You told me that your favorite quote is from Ed Milet, and it's, "You're the most qualified to help the person you used to be." What does that mean?
So this came to me later, and it was something that almost blew my mind as he said it, because it was a lot of, and I've used a bit of it in our conversation already. It was like, it just spoke to me because I was so full of self-doubt and imposter syndrome and these things that hung over me, because who am I to put a book out about any sort of development for the benefit of anyone else? Like, who are we to suggest anything to anybody else? And it's not fair for us to do that. We don't have to be PhD somebody. We don't have to be anything of that expert, because those people are there. And I wasn't prepared to appreciate them in the beginning, but I very much do now. That's through my development. But if I'm speaking to anybody, the one person that I can speak to is who I used to be. And as much as we can take any version of anything we hear, listen to, see, or believe, not all of this is going to relate to somebody, just like everything I listened to didn't relate to me. But I took what I could from everything I listened to and made it about how I could use it. How do I translate this? So I get over my self-doubt, my shame, my imposter syndrome just by reaching out to who I used to be, and I get confidence in helping that person, and whatever that translates to for the person that can relate to any of my messages.
You're the most qualified. That's very, very cool. Very cool part of the quote. That part really jumps out at me. Well, the book is Going Dry, My Path to Overcoming Habitual Drinking by Sean Robinson. Where can they get the book?
It's available on Amazon. Definitely through Amazon. I've got it also through Chapters, Indigo, Barnes & Noble. It's available most bookstores. I don't believe it's something that's stocked. I know I've got it in like the bookstores near me. Just I've requested it, but you can definitely get it online there. My website, seanrobinson.ca. It's got a link to Amazon for the book, but I also give back. I've got tons of free content. I've got a newsletter that I put out every Tuesday that's through my website. I've got plenty of video, inspirational content through my website, but also through TikTok. I've any podcasts and stuff that I'm on, I like to share on my website and through all my social accounts. So there's definitely loads of free content out there, and it's all about my journey and helping who I used to be.
You have to email me with those links so I can put it in the show notes.
Definitely.
John, thank you so much for meeting us today and having our chat about your book. I wish you all the best with the book and all the best for you and your family.
Thanks, Greg. I appreciate it. It's been my pleasure, and I hope we communicate again soon.
You bet.
Well, that's an amazing story. As I'm listening to you guys and the interview, I could relate to a lot what was being said, but it was just the way he was saying it. I've taken part in AA. I don't believe he went.
Did you say?
No, AA.
Okay.
Alcoholics Anonymous.
AAA in the States is, or CAA is much the same. It's a roadside assistance.
Exactly.
But no, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Alcoholics Anonymous.
That's all right. Yeah, and am I correct in saying this? He didn't go that route. It was just something that he decided to do, and there was a lot of pressure from his friends. Oh, have a beer.
Yeah, you got to drink at my wedding.
A lot of pressure from his friends, but as he said, it's something that he wanted to do for himself. When you go through something like that, you really find out who your real friends are.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Never thought of, like, I read the book, and after talking with Sean, I never thought about that. Yeah, you do kind of, whenever you change a habit that other people subscribe to or are doing the same thing, no matter what it is, You're going to get flack from some people, but if they're really true friends, they're going to say, okay. As I said to Sean, I don't understand it, but I support you, and hey, way to go. But I mean, one thing is having internal motivation to stop drinking, but having a culture and people around you that are pressuring you is extremely difficult. It's quite impressive what he went through.
And as we mentioned at the top of the program today, this all took place during the beginning of COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. January of 2021. And like I said off the top too, the guy has lost a lot of weight. And as we just found out, he's down to, I think his weigh-in was 215 pounds. And a lot of that can be attributed to the drinking. That's true. Yeah. Beverage alcohol has a lot of sugar in it. And that's probably why his weight was so high. But yeah, what a great guy. What a great interview. Sean Robinson showing us that no matter what your habits are, you have the ability to change them. I hope his book sells well. It's selling pretty good so far.
Yeah, and like I said, he's an everyday guy. He's not a doctor, and he's not a motivational speaker.
You heard that, eh? Yeah.
Oh yeah. And that's what I think. That's what made me really relate to today's interview. He's just an everyday guy, and he started journaling stuff, and he followed through on it, and. So congratulations. And I really do believe it has changed his life for the better.
Oh, absolutely. So that book, by the way, folks, Going Dry, My Path to Overcoming Habitual Drinking by Sean Robinson. As he mentioned, it's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and many different places. So we encourage you to read it. I read it right through. It was 120 pages. It was an easy read.
An easy read.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And his website, too, SeanRobinson.ca. If you want to, he's got some videos up there and other things that you might find interesting.
Right. Good add to that. Thanks, Rob. Well, next week we're back again with MindBody Matters in our Keep Talking segment. Meanwhile, be kind to yourself.
And most importantly, be well.
Be sure to like and follow us on all social media. And if you like what you hear, hit subscribe, download, and share with your friends. MindBody Matters is a great media production.